Call for dialogue. Democratic presumptive candidate Kamala Harris picks Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. Details to come your way shortly. News now begins in the west of the continent with stories on the End Bad Governance protest in Nigeria, even as we tell you that the Economic Community of West African States Commission has expressed concern over the ongoing protests in Nigeria, lamenting reports of violence, fatalities and property destruction. In a statement made available on Tuesday, the Commission welcomed the national address by President Bola Tinubu on Sunday, August 4, and urged protesters and all stakeholders to heed the President's call for inclusive dialogue to address grievances and ensure peace and security. ECOWAS emphasized the right of citizens to peaceful protests as enshrined in the 2001 ECOWAS Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance and Nigeria's 1999 Constitution. The Commission extended condolences to the families of those who have died and expressed sympathy with the Nigerian government and its people over the losses incurred. Still on the End Bad Governance protests, Justice Sharifat Shonaike of the Lagos State High Court in Igboshere has extended an earlier order that restricts protesters in Lagos to the Freedom and Peace Parks in the Ojota and Ketu areas of the state. The order followed an application by the Lagos State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice Lawal Pedro SAN, who sought an extension after complying with pre-action protocols for preemptive remedies ordered last week by another judge, Justice Emmanuel Okundari. Represented by the Director for Civil Litigations, Hamid Oyenuga, Pedro informed the court that the earlier court order had been served on all respondents in compliance with the protocols. He argued that despite the lack of response from the respondents, extending the restriction is necessary to maintain the relative peace in the state amid ongoing nationwide protests. Justice Shonaike, satisfied with the AG's compliance with Justice Ogundari's orders, ruled to extend the restriction of protests to the designated Freedom and Peace Parks in Ojota and Ketu until full compliance with the pre-action orders is achieved. Earlier on the news, our correspondent Bernard Akede was harassed by suspected thugs at Ojota while giving a live situation report at that part of Lagos State. Our correspondent, who fortunately escaped with his crew without injuries, expressed shock that the incident happened in the full view of policemen detailed to protect lives and maintain peace.
Several kilometers away from that particular area. So, the police had to explain to us after we questioned them. They spoke to us after we explained to them that we should not be there. All right, at the moment, do roll on now. I went up. All right, so we're being harassed now. We have to go into the vehicle.
All right, Bernard, just take it easy.
So, obviously, we're being attacked by thugs and we have to go in. Yeah.
That's fine. You can just get settled in.
Let's now tell you that a Kano State mobile court on Tuesday ordered the remand of 632 protesters for alleged vandalism of public and government properties during the End Bad Governance in Nigeria protest. The defendants are charged with criminal conspiracy, theft, unlawful assembly, inciting disturbance, trespass, and mischief by fire. After the remand order, the court adjourned the sitting until August 19 for a hearing. Earlier, the State Director of Public Prosecution, Salisu Tahir, informed the court that the defendants committed the alleged offenses during the protest on August 1. He alleged that on the same date, during the nationwide protest, the defendants trespassed and vandalized government and public properties in the state. Security agencies in Nigeria have vowed to protect the sovereignty of the nation following the sighting of Russian flags by protesting youths. Speaking after a meeting of the spokespersons of security, defense and emergency agencies in the country, they say the protests have been hijacked by hoodlums who have used the cover of the protests to unleash mayhem on citizens. Amadin Uyi tells us more.
At the back.
It's been a theater of conflicts between protesters and security agencies. While security agencies have been accused of using disproportionate force to disperse peaceful protesters, they maintain that hoodlums under the guise of protests are wreaking havoc on innocent citizens. The Force Public Relations Officer says that security agencies will not allow the protests degenerate into wide-scale destruction witnessed during the NSAS protests, which almost destroyed the country.
Anytime any gathering or assembly becomes riotous, we have the mandate, we have the constitutional backing, we have the legal backing to engage proportionally, professionally, logically, and diplomatically to handle such a situation.
At this briefing of spokespersons of security, defense, and emergency agencies, the Force PRO, while answering questions from journalists, says that the recent trend where youths were seen brandishing Russian flags and calling for a regime change will not be tolerated. He said arrests have already been made and security agencies are getting to the root of the matter.
To carry the flags of a foreign country on our land is a criminal offense. We have them arrested. Just this morning, we have arrested one Ahmed Taylor from Kwana Hudu, a Nasarawa local government area of Kano State, for producing in large quantity Russian flags given to young Nigerians to go and fly. For reasons known to him, we are profiling him. We want to get other sponsors like him. As I speak with you, the same thing is happening in Kaduna. Thus, as we started this briefing, we've been able to arrest 30 of them with same Russian flags.
Other security agencies urge Nigerians to embrace peace and dialogue, saying security agencies in the country will protect their nation's sovereignty.
We are working with all stakeholders to be sure that there is no breakdown of law and order. And specifically, the President has said in his address yesterday that, the young people should not let some persons deceive them about their country. We need your support. We need every hands on deck to have peace in our land.
Us in the armed forces, we are a stability force. And as a testament to this, we are deployed across the country, which is indicative of our commitment to defend our country and to protect our citizens. We will continue to be committed to guarantee the safety of our citizens across the country and will continue to do so.
They urge citizens to embrace peace and dialogue, saying there can be no development without peace. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Meanwhile, the Russian embassy in Nigeria has denied any involvement in the usage of the European nation's flag by some persons during the End Bad Governance protest. But the country's embassy, in a statement, said neither the Russian government nor its officials are involved in the protesters' activities. The embassy attributed the use of Russian symbols by the protesters to personal choices, saying it does not reflect any official policy opposition of the Russian government. It also expressed respect for Nigeria's democratic processes, acknowledging peaceful demonstrations as a legitimate expression of democracy. The embassy, however, condemned any potential disruptions or acts of violence that might arise from these events. And now to discuss all this, I'm being joined by a public affairs analyst, Dr. Ojon. Thank you so much, Dr. for joining us to talk about this.
It's a pleasure always.
Now, the handling of the ongoing protest seems to have taken a new dimension, with security operatives telling the journalists not to interview the protesters while even failing to provide protection for them against hoodlums, despite being present. So what precedent is this? What kind of precedent is being set?
Okay, in a community like ours, there are two things that we can actually rely on. We can rely on philosophy, and we can also rely on history. Philosophically, we have seen that government in Africa always have issues with response. And like a philosopher said, the matter is not the matter. The matter is how you respond to the matter. And we can trace back history. One of the reasons or lessons that we should have learned from the 2020 EndSARS protest is the fact that the protest was orderly, and you can mention a lot of names, big names across our communities were actually part of the protest initially, even with some state governors coming out to support the protester. That's in 2020. But you know that immediately the government responded the way it responded, it led to the kind of crisis that anybody would not pray for in the future. It's the same thing we are having. It's usually about how you respond to issue. And one of the reasons why they respond the way they respond is that opposition in Africa is enmity. Anytime in our democratic practice in Africa, anytime you hear opposition in the head of those people in power, it actually means that it's enmity. So when people say they want to protest, in the reasoning of leadership, it means that my enemies are coming and they have to do everything possible to either stop the enemy or to tame the enemy. And this has been our practice over the time. And that's why you see that when issues like this happen, instead of engagement, what the people used to do, what leadership usually do in this part of the world is to declare war on them. And we've always seen that this usually does not resort to something that is palatable.
Okay.
And that's the situation that we've always had.
Doctor, let's equally tie all this you've said to the fact that even our reporters were manhandled at Ojota today, and we even had the same scenario play out in Abuja too, where reporters were attacked alongside demonstrators without caution while even documenting the events. In about 30 seconds, I'd like to find out, is this some sort of social oppression, or, you know, how do we even describe this in a democratic setting?
Okay, it's not just about whatever action you see is a representation of the thinking pattern of leadership. The thinking pattern of leadership at this moment is do not give the protesters voice. And once you get to this point of trying to quench, quote unquote, the voice of the protesters, you see that the immediate victim will be the journalist. And once the journalist is harassed, once the journalist is afraid to cover, you discover that whatever leadership we now do at the end of the day will not be able to make it to the pages of newspaper.
Okay,
it's
Doctor,
all part of the strategy.
Doctor, you are going to tell us more about this, but then let's just let you go, all right? We are going to visit this particular topic maybe some other time and talk more about this and how it affects countries like this that have democratic governance and power. But then we appreciate your contribution so far. We got a very short break now. We'll be back with more stories.
Away from that area, and we had to record from several kilometers away from that particular area. So, the police had to explain to us after we questioned them. They spoke to us after we explained to them that we should not be there. All right, at the moment, do roll on now. I went out. All right, so we're being harassed now. We have to go into the vehicle.
And that's actually a very condemnable act in Ojota there, where our correspondent Bernard Akede, while doing his job, giving us details as regards the protests in Ojota, being harassed by thugs. Despite the fact that we had security personnel on ground there, nothing was done to actually caution these thugs from harassing our correspondents. But we thank God that no life was lost and no injury was recorded. At this particular time, it's better we even put this incident in proper perspective, hearing from the horse's mouth. I'm talking about Bernard Akede, who is live in the studio to give more flesh to this. Bernard, I must, doff my heart for you first for being courageous in the face of that threat. What was actually going through your mind when that happened?
Well, thank you, Lekan. It's a good thing that you were the one we started the report with earlier, and then, you're still back here. First of all, I would say thank you as well to the rest of the crew that were there together. Albert David, who was behind the camera, Karina, Harry, who was also with the camera, and then Ogene Ruru, who was the digital correspondent, the digital reporter there. I was afraid for all of us and the team because, like you said, the police were there not too long before this happened. But as you can see around from this clip, just as these people came, there was no police officer there anymore. They completely vanished from the scene. We did everything the police asked us to do. They said we should not interview people, that our interviews was what was, attracting the crowd that they did not want. And we obliged. You can see that we were not interviewing anybody. It was just a live report of the situation, around us. That was what we were doing. And then all of a sudden, we noticed this, would I say, group of people with weapons in their hands coming to us, chasing everybody away. And then the guy you would see there in the green tracksuit with the pipe struck me in the butt with that pipe. And then they began to harass us, pushing us away from the area.
That's quite sad, I must say. So, Bernard, earlier on, you've documented a report on the fact that there were security operatives, heavy security presence in that Ojota axis between even yesterday and today. And now you said they all disappeared. Was it that the entire security personnel left the area and opened up the place for the hoodlums to perpetrate the heinous act? Or what actually happened with the presence of the security operatives there?
So the security operatives asked us to move away from that particular location where the protest had been, going on for the past 5 days, today being day 6. So after that report I had with you earlier, where one of the senior police officers called me and told me to speak to the other journalists and ask them not to interview any other person, which I did. They told us to move further down. So we moved several meters away from where we were, moved to Ojota bus stop where you have the pedestrian bridge, where all of that happened. Having moved there, we were no longer in the view of all of the huge number of police officers, but there were at least 5 or 6 officers who were not far from us there, who were still in our view, and in whose view we still were in. So basically they could see us and we could see them not far from there. And then as the time drew closer for me to deliver this live report, you can see behind me now, all those, about 5 or 6 of them that were there were no longer there anymore. We were just left alone. We just realized that we were the only ones there, and then these thugs came. It was almost like clockwork. The police were there earlier, and then police disappear, thugs appear. However, I would like to state categorically, there was a plainclothes police officer. If we have the chance to take back the report where you and I spoke earlier, I believe he was a police officer, plainclothes. He's the one who came to call me and told me that the senior officer wanted to speak with me while you were there with me live on camera. After speaking to the senior officer, I came back. He was dressed in a black and white shirt. While this was happening, we saw him. We identified him under this pedestrian bridge, believing he's a police officer as well. And while we drove off, we still saw him and made eye contact with him, suggesting that at least one police officer was there, even though he was in plain clothes.
So would this mean that tactically the security chiefs or police personnel right there in a way, dislodged the protesters away from where they were meant to converge, where they were meant to be confined, or even haven't been told to move further down? Was it that they in a way dislodged them, dispersed them, and there was no protest as at that time that this occurred?
Yes, you're correct. There was no protest. However, it was not forceful. They came and ordered everybody to stand up. The protesters who sat there behind where the journalists were in Ojota told them to stand up and escorted them out of the area, told them to walk out of that area, that they didn't want any kind of drama, that they didn't want people present there. So the so-called handful of protesters, actually numbering not up to 20, if up to not more than 20, telling them to leave, as well as the journalists. And I personally still spoke to the journalists saying the police had asked that we do not interview anybody, we should move away. And we did that, clearly. We moved away from that vicinity and moved further down to Ojota bus stop where this incident unfolded.
So where does this put a country like Nigeria in the face of freedom of information bill that we know is in place and the right for people to freely express themselves?
I'll take it from the angle of freedom of the press, which I think at this time, at any time, at every time, is not negotiable. Press freedom is something that we've been crying for quite a while. And I must say that I am personally quite disappointed. From the beginning of the protest up until now, it had been pretty much civil in Lagos. There had been some cooperation between the police and the press up until now that this happened. Now, the day before the protest, you remember that I was stopped, halfway through a live broadcast by a police officer. And then after that, the senior police officer addressed the issue and allowed me to continue my live broadcast. But then this one that happened is completely unacceptable. No journalist should be harassed. No journalist should be disturbed or stopped from doing their job. Even after we take permission and we discuss with police officers, even when we are not supposed to, we still go ahead fulfilling all righteousness to ensure that we have permission to do our jobs. I strongly believe that we should have proper covering and protection from the police while doing our jobs. Again, press freedom is not negotiable, and this act has set us, years back in time, unfortunately.
Dangote Ketu, thank you so much for sharing this update with us. I'm actually particularly happy that you're fine and well, including the crew, but then thumbs up to you for doing a good job.
Thank you very much for having me. It's all in the day's job.
You're still watching New Central Television. We now continue with these protests and bad governance protests in Nigeria, and I will be talking to Chizoba Anyonwe, who will be also telling us what has been happening in Jos, the capital of Plateau State. Chizoba, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So we understand there's been a bit of rancor also in Jos metropolis. Can you kindly bring us up to speed with that?
It's actually true that there was some bit of rancor and a bit of violence in some parts of Jos, not generally everywhere. Some areas of Bauchi Road, Zololo Junction, all in Jos North local government area of the state, where on Sunday evening, a group of youth actually tried to hijack the protest that had been going on peacefully since it started from day one. They tried to loot some restaurants, some shops, and some business places, So, but thank God some security agencies, especially troops from the Nigerian Army, the Operation Safe Haven, and then the Nigerian Police Force, they were all on ground on time to save the situation. So that necessitated the 24-hour curfew that was placed on the area by the state governor of Caleb. So that was the situation. And unfortunately, too, it escalated into the next day. That was yesterday. But good enough to security operatives were on ground to also put it to a hold, And so the curfew is still ongoing because of that. You can see behind me now, the road is virtually empty apart from the security operatives that you can see going about to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order. And then a few people that are on essential duties, just like us, the media people, and then some other essential workers.
Now, if you would describe the looters, would you say they are actually hoodlums trying to infiltrate the protest or hijack the process and use the opportunity to perpetrate evil? Or you just say they're just normal citizens in the metropolis?
Well, earlier on this morning, the state government had a press conference where he said that some of them actually came in from neighboring states, but not mentioning the state, But from the visuals that we saw that went viral, they were actually looking, if the looks could be anything to write home about, they actually looked like people that don't even know what protest is actually about, And so they just wanted to use the opportunity, which they think is an opportunity for them to cause mayhem by looting the shop and restaurant. And unfortunately, everyone now, even the people that had been on the peaceful protest, everyone is suffering this curfew.
So in this incident, does it mean that the protests will not continue, maybe in Jos and some other parts of Plateau State?
Everyone is thinking from what is happening that the protest has come to an end. However, some others are still calling from some quarters that once the curfew is lifted, they will head back again on the streets to continue with the protest because they say it is their civic right. And so no one will shut them out from carrying out their civic rights. So it's for us to see anyway when the time comes after the curfew has been relaxed or lifted. No one can tell, but for now, everybody's still home observing the curfew.
All right, Chizabayonwe, thank you so much for bringing us the updates in Plateau State.
Thanks for having me.
You're still watching News Central Television. We'll still have more stories that we'll be intimating you with, but then that'll be after the show timeout. Do stay with us. We now tell you that Nigeria's former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, has voiced worries that anyone making money from Nigeria's lucrative gasoline import industry will try to weaken the Dangote Petroleum Refinery. This statement follows allegations by Aliko Dangote, president of the Dangote Group, who has accused certain mafias of attempting to sabotage his $20 billion refinery project. In an interview, Obasanjo suggested that if the refinery succeeds, it could boost investments from both Nigerians and foreigners. He also adds that Aliko's investment in a refinery, if it goes well, should encourage both Nigerians and non-Nigerians to invest in Nigeria. The Nigerian Communications Commission has directed telecommunications operators to simplify their tariff plans, bundles, and promotional activities. This is coming after Nigerians expressed dissatisfaction about how their airtime and data plans, which lasted longer before now, evaporate in days amid agitations by telcos seeking NCC's approval to hike tariff plans. NCC spokesman Ruben Moka, in a statement, said the regulator has mandated all telcos to release clear, easy to understand and accurate information about the cost of voice, short messaging service and data services to all subscribers. Moka said the regulator communicated the directive to telcos like MTN, Airtel and others on July 29, 2024. It mandated mobile network operators to publish a comprehensive table showing the features of the tariff plans and bundle offers. And now to election matters. The forthcoming local government elections in Ogun State have been fixed for Saturday, November 16, 2024. The chairman of the Ogun State Independent Electoral Commission, Babatunde Oshibodu, disclosed this in a statement signed by him and made available to journalists in Abeokuta on Tuesday. Oshibodu said Thursday, August 8, 2024, is scheduled for the release of guidelines for the conduct of the elections and stakeholders meeting, while campaigns by the political parties begin on Friday, August 9. The elected local government officials completed their tenure about a week ago. Now, the Niger Delta Development Commission has launched a youth internship scheme that would empower 10,000 young people across the region with training and experience needed for gainful employment, as well as prepare them for self-employment through entrepreneurship. That exercise, which was flagged off in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, had in attendance youths from the 9 states of the Federation. News Central's correspondent, Austin Azu, brings us the details.
In a time when Nigeria youth desired employment opportunities with relatively scarce vacancies despite obtaining the necessary academic requirements, unemployment rates in Nigeria remain on the increase. The Niger Delta Development Commission is aiming to address the growing unemployment in the country with the launch of the Youth Internship Scheme for young people in the Niger Delta region to acquire skills and become an entrepreneur.
The NDDC Youth Internship Scheme is a bold step towards changing this narrative, providing a lifeline to 10,000 young individuals to gain work experience that may lead some to start their own businesses.
We know Mr. President is working very hard with his policies to address the challenges that are facing the citizens of this country. And we in the Niger Delta have chosen to give this government that chance by way of supporting this government and supporting its policies.
Chairman, Governing Board of the NDDC, Chiwedu Ebie, who gave scope of the scheme, said the internship would allow the youth to enhance their technical skills and acquire practical experience in sectors such as oil and gas, hospitality, medicine, among others.
What we want to do is we want people to be empowered in a way that they learn a skill. So it's an internship. But during that period of the internship, that 12-month period, it is expected that a stipend will be paid to you. And so it's very important that we take it seriously. This youth internship scheme is to empower you with a skill set. They've also made it clear it is online and it is free.
Some stakeholders and youth in the region commended the NDDC for the initiative and encouraged eligible applicants to apply.
And for me, it's a welcome development. Similar initiatives must be done to accommodate people of this region. Our region expects so much from not just NDDC, other agencies of development, so that people can truly benefit from opportunities that abound in government.
Those eligible to apply for the scheme are youth below 45 years who must hail from the Niger Delta region. In Port Harcourt for News Central, Austin Azu.
We also tell you that the African First Lady's Peace Mission has launched an initiative to provide certification and professional training for peace mediators and women leaders on the continent. This follows the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the mission and the Mediation Training Institute in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. News Central's Joshua Marai completes the reports.
Africa has become the center point of conflict, which has left millions displaced with their livelihood destroyed. While many have called for the need for mediation as an alternative to the use of force, peace advocates say there is a need to improve the capacity of persons saddled with dialoguing for peace on the continent. As African First Lady's Peace Mission signed a memorandum of understanding with the Mediation Training Institute in Nigeria, they say the need for certification and professional training of women leaders involved in promoting peace and harmonious coexistence across African communities has become necessary.
Not just the fact that we have inaugurated this beautiful facility that is a center for training, for mediation and peacekeeping. It's significant because you see what's happening here in Nigeria, what's happening in other parts of Africa. There is a need, a crippling need, to begin to talk about peace, to begin to change our mindset about peace, and to ensure that we build the Africa that we need, because there are issues.
The aim is to ensure a new African order where divisive national frontiers, the burden of military spending, the different crises all over will be things of the past.
Having it done with, this MOU today. But I said we should issue of having too many issues. It's because of issues we're talking about peace that we should address the root cause. And I said, apart from Nigeria, including Nigeria and other African countries, that this whole peace mission will be far-fetched if we do not reach down to the root cause.
This initiative is coming at a very, very important time, especially in the life of one of the biggest nations in Africa and West Africa, Nigeria, at a time when we all need to come together to bring peace to our land.
Stakeholders at the gathering expressed optimism that the partnership will empower a new generation of peace mediators with professional skills and certification, promoting peaceful coexistence in Africa. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
And News Central with more stories will be back in a short while. Don't go away. Some Zimbabweans in South Africa have taken to the streets in Pretoria, heading to the Zimbabwean embassy to protest passport fees hike. The march comes after the announcement of the passport increase by nearly 50%. Last month, the Zimbabwean consulate in Johannesburg announced that the price of a passport would increase from 3,100 rand to over 4,500 rand. This has seen more than 1,000 Zimbabweans signing a petition calling on the government to review its decision.
Indeed, Lekan, Zimbabweans, as you can see them behind me, they are protesting not only about the rise in the passport, but also they've mentioned a lot of things. They are protesting about the illegitimate government in Zimbabwe. And also we know that in Zimbabwe, the upcoming SADC meeting, they are also protesting about that, saying that they don't want that meeting to be held in Zimbabwe because the current government that is in Zimbabwe is illegitimate. But let me just take this conversation to ask them why they are here and what exactly their demands are. Let me just bring in one of them who is here. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Why are you here today?
The reason why we're here, we want to send a clear message to Zimbabwe that we are tired about the way they are treating us, and we want to make sure that there will be no SADC meeting that is going to be held in Zimbabwe.
And also talking about the rise in passport fee, how much is the passport in Zimbabwe now?
The passport now here at consulate is 5,000 rand. You know, like especially people who stay in South Africa, it's not like all of them, they can afford to get passport. The government, they want to just to steal public funds. You know, they are looting public funds right and center. So like as a concern Zimbabwe, we are saying no to rising of passport. And another thing, there is no meeting that is going to happen to Zimbabwe.
Meanwhile, the South African Zionist Federation, the SAF, has accused the South African government of aligning with oppressive regimes as the threat of an Iranian attack on Israel intensifies, causing global market instability due to fears of a regional war. In a statement on Tuesday, the SAF spokesperson Relene Marks criticized the South African government for consistently seeking to legitimize terrorist organizations such as Hamas at this critical juncture in global politics. The group urged the government to adopt a more balanced and principled foreign policy stance that recognizes Israel's right to self-defense. The tensions in the Middle East have escalated following a recent Hezbollah rocket attack that tragically killed 12 children playing football in Israel's Golan Heights on July 27. And from other continents, we tell you that Vice President Kamala Harris has selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate, according to multiple sources. The selection caps the Midwestern Democrats' short but swift ascent from a relative unknown to a leading driver of the party's attacks on Donald Trump and the MAGA agenda. In choosing Walz, Harris is turning to a Midwestern governor, a military veteran and a union supporter who helped enact an ambitious democratic agenda for his state, including sweeping protections for abortion rights and generous aid to families. Harris hopes to shore up a campaign standing across the upper Midwest, a critical region in presidential politics that often serves as a buffer for Democrats seeking the White House. Let's now tell you, a Polish man accused of punching Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen went on trial in Copenhagen on Tuesday, risking prison time and deportation if convicted. The suspect, whom Danish authorities have ruled cannot be named in the media, was immediately apprehended after the alleged assault on June 7 in a Copenhagen square, which left the Prime Minister with a whiplash. The 39-year-old, who denies responsibility, entered the court wearing a T-shirt and jeans and is due to testify.
Today, it's the first court hearing today, and we will have to hear the testimony from the defendant himself. So actually the public may hear for the very first time what actually happened. Some of it he doesn't remember, but we'll hear what he has to say. Yeah, well, he remembers he met the Prime Minister in the central Copenhagen. And actually what happened, he doesn't remember because he was drunk. And unfortunately, we will not hear the Prime Minister.
In sports, the Nigeria Women Football League on Tuesday announced Cross River State as the host of the 2023-2024 NWFL Championship. The upcoming championship, the league's second division, will be held from August 31 to September 8, 2024 in Calabar, Cross River State. This championship follows the Premiership Super 6 finals hosted by Bayelsa State, where Edo Queens emerged as first-time winners in June. The Chief Operating Officer of the NWFL, Modupe Shabi, said the participating clubs will be divided into 4 groups, namely A, B, C, and D. The top 2 teams will be promoted to NWFL Premiership, while 2 teams will be relegated to the 3rd division of the Women's League in Nigeria. 3 Nigerian track and field athletes, Ese Brume, Ruth Usoro, and Christina Ochonogo, have made history by qualifying for the final of the women's long jump at the Olympics in Paris. This is the first time that 3 Nigerian women have reached this stage in the event. Out of 31 competitors, only 12 advanced to the final by meeting the qualification standard of 6.75 meters or being among the top 12 performers. Ese Brume qualified with a jump of 6.78 meters, Ruth Usoro with 6.68 meters, and Christina Ochonogo with 6.65 meters. They will face challengers from Germany, the US, France, Italy, and Romania in the final on Thursday, August 8. And to wrap it up, World Cup champions Germany reached the Olympic men's basketball semi-finals for the first time by defeating Greece 76-63 on Tuesday, eliminating the 2-time NBA most valuable player Giannis Antetokounmpo after trailing by 12 points in the first quarter. Germany leveled the score at 36-36 by halftime, and they surged ahead in the fourth quarter to secure a semi-final spot against either host nation, France or Canada. Antetokounmpo led Greece with 22 points, but France Wagner's 18 points helped Germany stay unbeaten in 4 games. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we look at our top stories again. Lagos Court has extended restriction on demonstration to designated parks within the state. ECOWAS has urged protesters to heed President Tinubu's call for dialogue. We told you that the Democratic presumptive candidate Kamala Harris has picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. You can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV, and you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Alvo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan Onabanjo.